Welcome to Stay Sparked. We are three longtime friends here to share inspiration with you, aim to light you up. I'm Betsy.
I'm Halcyon.
And I'm JANUS.
On today's episode, we talk about believing in ourselves.
We talk about ways that we learn to hold a high vision for our lives.
And how do we establish a process and a framework for making that self-belief a daily part of our practice?
Enjoy the episode.
Welcome, everyone, to Stay Sparked. We like to start off our episodes with a bit of gratitude. But first, we would like to give a shout out to our friends down in Costa Rica. Himalaya and Dave, also known as DTO, have a retreat center called Embody in Costa Rica. And they are hosting all sorts of yoga retreats, empowerment, self-improvement retreats, wellness retreats. It's a fantastic setup they've got down there. They have just opened recently, and they are ready to fill it up with goodness. So if you're looking to go down to Costa Rica or host an event down there, look up our friends at Embody Costa Rica. They're easy to find online. So as we said, we like to start off our shows with a little bit of gratitude. Halcyon, what do you got for us today?
Oh boy, I am feeling grateful for access to modern dentistry and being a grown-up and getting some work done. I have been really resistant to going to the dentist, but had the first of a few appointments this week and feeling much more suited to have a mouth of teeth for the rest of my life. But thank you, modern dentistry, for sending me on my path.
Fantastic.
Amazing. Yes, I'm grateful for that too. I'm actually going to share my gratitude is for breathing clearly. I can take some deep breaths through my nose right now, which is not always the case, but I recently had a treatment that's called nasal specific. It is where they put a balloon in your nose and adjust different places within your skull. It was one of the most intense and pretty invasive treatments I've ever had in my life. And it was well worth it. I'm so grateful that I had the courage to try this treatment. Dr. Jaden was amazing. He was really wonderful the way that he helped me feel relaxed and comfortable. And it was amazing. So nasal specific and for breathing clearly is my gratitude.
Yeah, it is amazing. Yeah, I've been hearing about this, and yeah, I have to give it a try. I hear good things. Ultimately, the intensity is a thing I hear too. So, but yeah, I'll give that a try. So me, it's pretty simple. I am grateful for my kitty cats. I have two cats. One's a big Maine Coon, and another's a tiny little rescue tabby, and they have made me laugh like at least once a day for the last few days, which has been good. So laughter is always good, and they just are these crazy cats who are pretty funny, and so yeah, they've been giving me some nice moments the last few days. So I'm grateful for them for sure.
Oh, and just as you spoke to that, one showed up in the background of your video.
Yeah,
he's like, Boogie.
Hoomy, yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're hams, but yeah, they're a lot of fun.
Which is a reminder, if you ever want to see our faces or whatever felines might be in the background, our episodes are on YouTube as well.
For the amazing things that we're wearing too.
That's true.
On YouTube. Hello.
You can check out Betsy's cool earrings, and that reminds me. Yes. Last little bit of housekeeping. We are available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And if you could find it in your hearts to give us a 5-star review, thumbs up, rate us 5 stars. If you only give us 4 stars, we're inclined to think you are a hater. Don't be a hater. We appreciate the time and attention you give us. So thank you for your support.
We love you guys.
We love you guys. And so today we are something that's a little behind the scenes, how the sausage is made. So we get online first and to kind of just talk with each other and see what feels good as a topic, and then we kind of parse it out and suss it out, and eventually land on something. And what we have landed on today was the idea of keeping our eyes on the prize, holding the highest vision for ourselves. We all have these ideas of what we would like our lives to be, what we would like to be doing, and how we would like to be showing up in the world. And it is sometimes challenging to hold ourselves to this vision. It's easy to get sidetracked. It's easy to get thrown off and easy to lose focus because there's so much happening in life. So what we want to talk about today is, how do we do that? How do we maintain this highest version or the highest vision for ourselves? And I want to start with you, Betsy, because I feel like and all the years we've known each other, which is really approaching like getting close to 20 years at this point, I have, and not to blow smoke up your butt, but your life has definitely kind of appeared on an upward trajectory the entire time. And your vision is always, I'm sure you have your ups and downs, and life is a roller coaster, but you seem to be trending up and have been doing so for the entirety of the time I know you. How do you personally do that? How do you keep that highest vision for yourself, and what best practices might you have for that?
Thank you for that reflection. Yes, it's been a journey. I love that you said that about the upward kind of spiral or upward trajectory, because actually I had written that word down, I think 3 years ago, upward spiral. I put it up on my wall, upward spiral. It was my intention for at the beginning of the new year. And I really love that, the frequency of those words and the frequency of that intention to be moving on a upward spiral of life. And that has been a big part of my guiding light and a big part of my inward focus of just continuing to rise up. Because, right, there's places in our lives that sometimes we get caught in a downward spiral. And it's like, can be sometimes difficult to get out of it. And so keeping my eye on the prize, upward spiral has been definitely my mission. And so, yeah, I think a big part of how I have gotten to stay in the upward spiral is a lot of it is intention. Coming to my intention at the beginning of every year, in the middle of the years, doing practices to keep coming back to what is my intention. Where do I get to clean certain belief systems up? I think that's really been a big part of that too, is really being able to see where I might not be holding myself so high. As you know, affirmations have been a huge part of my life and now a huge part of my work. And one of the biggest insights I've had from doing so much mindset work has been really being willing to look at the belief systems that are holding me back. Whereas, in my younger years, I didn't really know how to navigate these negative belief systems, but I was pretty insecure and uncertain about myself and my voice and my art and certain things where I really was pretty critical, and I still am critical on certain things. I've grown leaps and bounds because I attribute a lot of it to being willing to look at those places where I do hold myself back and come to my own personal practices with it. Rituals, for example, have been really helpful for me. I'll give an example. We just had an eclipse, lunar eclipse. And on a lunar eclipse, it's a full moon. And the full moon, I like to think of as a spotlight that shines light on the things that we're ready to release and let go of. And as I get in touch with the things that are holding me back, fears I have, doubts I have, patterns that are no longer serving, and I call them out and, really look at them, see where they come from, get really curious, write about them, get in touch with them. And that helps me to clear some of the control that those negative beliefs have within my life. And so I feel like that consistent, steady practice of cleaning up my internal dialogue, tending to the weeds in my garden, I think has been really helpful for me to be able to keep moving on that upward spiral, to start seeing myself as capable, able, seeing what's possible, trusting the universe, trusting my path. The manifestations start to increase as I start to clear some of the density of doubt and insecurities.
I love that. I'm curious, how specific do you have a visual, or as you are doing these practices, are you more focused on general beliefs about yourself, or is part of it also, I see myself in front of these people holding this book, and do you have a specific vision as you're tuning yourself?
Yeah, it varies because there's a lot of different layers inside, right? And so there's certain ones that I'm continuously working on tending to that are more general. And then there's certain ones that are more specific. And yes, the visual component for me has been really helpful with the vision boards and putting things in my environment to help me remember to keep my focus, right? So I have affirmations all around me. I keep sacred art around me that feels really uplifting and inspiring. I have my vision board in my bathroom. So every time I'm brushing my teeth, I see these beautiful visions that help me to stay focused on that rather than just getting caught in the like monkey mind. So yeah, that's super, super helpful to keep my eyes inspired.
Cool. It's interesting for me because I admire your upward spiral, but I do not. That is not a big focus of my energy. I spend a lot more energy on, am I being the kind of person that I want to be? Am I being honest? Am I being present? Am I being, it's like the qualities of being. But sometimes I drift a little bit because I do not have a real direction for it. At the same time, it's not necessarily the wrong way to do it in my mind, because like I kind of have this faith and trust that if I am focusing on being the person that I want to be and know I am and aligning to that truth, then where I go will be the right place. I do sometimes struggle with when I find myself in comparison states, or I'll see an example of one definition of success by somebody and I'm not there. And then I'll start to crumble and like, I should be heading towards that. I need to be doing that. And usually that's when I fall into a place of unhappiness, because I'm no longer aligning to my highest, whatever that is. I'm in a not enoughness. I'm trying to fix things, and but I think that there's a balance in there. Like, I think that there's a really interesting place of ambition versus complacency, like you want to be happy with what is, and you want to be working towards something better at the same time, so that you're like you can love what is happening and want something better. And I think sometimes I'm afraid of wanting something better. Yeah, I don't know. It's like a fear of failure. Like if I can just really focus on loving what is, then I never have to risk failing.
I think that's huge. And your gratitude practice, our gratitude practice for what is, I think is an absolute key to continue to hold ourselves high. Be grateful for what we do have now, right? Be grateful for how far we've come, because I think it can be sometimes a trap to keep looking towards the future or where we haven't yet gotten to, right? Because if we can just keep coming back to the present, grateful for what we have, it's kind of, maybe a little cliche, the saying is like the more we give thanks, the more there is to give thanks for, but it's true. It does feel that way. And if we are completely dissatisfied and bickering and frustrated, it can make things a little more difficult to move forward and make those positive changes in our lives. It can be fuel also for making positive changes, when things are not going the way that we want them to and we feel misaligned, then it can catalyze movement. I know I've been there before where I spent at least over a year of knowing that I was not going in the right direction. I could feel myself stuck. I could feel myself agitated and just not in alignment with my life path. And so I had to move into some very uncomfortable places to make decisions and make some big changes in my life.
Yeah, it's easy to kind of get caught up in or to kind of forget that we are ideally the drivers of our vehicle, our vehicle being life. It's easy to kind of just find yourself, at the result or the end result of some complacency that's fallen into your life. You kind of fall into a malaise, you fall into a rut. shall we say, where you have just, because your life is always going to be moving. Your life is always moving. You are always evolving. We are always becoming. But if we don't keep some sort of focus, we're going to end up in a place that's like, oh my gosh, how did I get here? I'm not happy about this. It's like, I think a lot of times it's because we simply lost focus on what was important to us, which is easy to do. I feel when we don't have a framework for our lives. And I find what helps me is having a bit of routine that allows me to, like, a touch point, whether it's I wake up and I immediately go into 10 minutes of meditation, or I immediately go into, for me, it's like my first thing I do is I make coffee, but it is a ritual for me. Like, I focus intently on this thing, and that's a good way for me to kind of start my day. It doesn't matter what's happening around me. It allows me to kind of focus and just kind of slowly get into my day, so I don't just end up getting on autopilot. And there's a lot more to talk about with framework, but which I will happily get into later.
So last night at my men's group, I was really kind of struggling with a little bit of this, the daily patterns and habits versus striving for something bigger. Like there's one voice inside of me that's like, you're not being productive, you're not doing anything. And the other voice inside me is like, well, you have your daily practices. I do morning gratitude. I do midday gratitude. I set intentions publicly in the morning every day. And it's a part of it. It's like, if I do my daily practices, if I am keeping on my sobriety path, if I am being a good partner in my relationship, like, I win. Like, that's it. Like, why do I need to be doing more than that? Like, and so I really have to kind of calm one of my voices of, you need to do to be enough. You need to be achieving and getting more to have worth. But I don't want to totally silence that voice, because I think that there is, as you said, life is motion. Life is, I want to be having adventures. I want to be challenged. I just don't want the voice pushing me to do that to rob me of the joy of what's happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They say that, the saying that comparison is the thief of joy. And that usually is said when it's focusing on people who we perceive as doing more than us or have it better than us. But comparison also can work in the other direction. And I think that can inspire us to be like, well, okay, so I'm not satisfied with this, or this, but so many other people would literally give their little finger to have what I have. Like, I'm just the simple fact that I was born in this country, the USA, puts me ahead of, there's privilege in where I was born. And there's a lot that can be done with that. So appreciating where I'm at, having gratitude for where I'm at, it might not be my version of ideal, or it might not be where I ultimately want to end up. But there is something to be said for looking at it and be like, wow, I actually have a lot. And there's a lot of people who would love to be where I'm at right now. So thank you for all that I have. And what can I do from this point this place that I love, this place that I absolutely am grateful to be at? How can I springboard from this into something that allows me, that brings, more joy to my life, that allows me to be of higher service to greater numbers of people, if that's my goal.
Yes. And I hear that as being able to shift the perspective around comparison, right? Because we do live at a time where there's so much information and so many people that are being shown to us, especially if we're on social media. It can be very easy to compare ourselves to others in a negative way. That can create belief systems or thoughts. I know personally, like, oh, I'm not far enough along, or I'm not as good as, or that person is so much better than. But to be able to catch that and go like, actually, you know what? I'm going to compare my life to the much bigger situation in the world and go like, wow, actually, thank you. I am doing great. And that can, like you said, be fuel. I know for me, if I catch myself in that negative comparison model, then that's when I got to turn my social media off, or I need to redirect my focus and come back to the meditation, right? Come back to the gratitude for what I do have, right? Because it can be like a hook, right? And when I keep coming back to that recognizing of self-awareness, if that hook gets in there, it's like, all right, time to start to clear, come back to my altar, do what I need to do to unhook myself from those beliefs or those thoughts, those nagging thoughts that, could potentially drag me into this downward spiral and then make me feeling not good about myself or not where I really want to be. And then that creates a complacency, sometimes paralyzation of being able to keep moving forward. And then when I do find myself into the practice of the meditation or the ritual that, okay, like I'm good. I know that I'm good enough. I know that I'm exactly where I need to be. I am much farther along than I sometimes give myself credit for. Those kinds of beliefs, thoughts, affirmations help me come back to center and then become fuel for my aspirations of going forward. And I can be patient with this beautiful process of knowing that my life is on that trajectory of growth and goodness.
Love that. Yeah, I love that. And I love what you said a minute ago about being more of service, Janus, because I think that is an easy or a helpful one for me, because when I'm feeling anchored and solid, I know that I want to be heading towards being more of service. But when I can get off track or in comparison, I can start to be attached to what that looks like. I need to have more people seeing the things that I do that are trying to be helpful. I need to not enough. I'm not having enough impact. And I'm now trapped in this kind of this downward spiral instead of just, I don't know how much impact I'm supposed to have. I just know I'm supposed to be of service. And sometimes being of service means of service to myself. Sometimes it's self-care, which is one of the kind of things that I've been doing in my morning, broadcast is like, how can we today just increase the positive in some way? How can we heal a little bit? And that can mean, if you have the energy, it means being friendlier. It can be a creative pursuit. If you don't have the energy, it could be just taking care of yourself. And any way that you are just kind of in a service healing state, it's not the magnitude, to go back to the direction, not distance thing that I like to go back. It's if I can be in that direction of service, that can clear away a lot of the fog when I start to feel like, what am I doing? Is it enough? It's like, no. I'm taking steps towards service. Keep going.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I saw a quote the other day that kind of spoke to purpose, which is what we discussed like a couple episodes ago. But it was really, I think it's important here as well. And to paraphrase, it said that your purpose isn't the thing that you do. Your purpose is how other people feel when you do the thing that you do. It is what you inspire in others, what you bring to others. That's your purpose. How they feel about the thing you do, that's what you're here to do. And so it's like, I'm here to help people feel the love. Fantastic. Do that. I want people to feel gratitude. There's so much to be grateful for. Whatever you got to do to make that happen, that's what you do. And there's something the older I get, the more I see things in shades of gray. There's nothing is all good. Nothing is all bad. It's not black and white. There's, things are shades of gray. However, there is a good prism to view things in our life. And it's something that we can look at everything that is in our life, everything tangible that is in our life, even non-tangible, like beliefs. We can examine our beliefs through this prism. We can look at the clothes that we wear, the place we live, the job we have, the car we drive, the plants that we have in our place. Everything can be looked at and put in one of two categories. This is either adding to my life or it is taken away from my life. There is no middle ground. This microphone that I'm speaking into is either adding to my life or it's taken away from my life. Which is it? It's adding to my life. It allows me to be heard clearly on this podcast. Fantastic. We can look at everything in our life and be like, is this thing serving me? Is this help? Is this adding to my life or taking away from the experience? And if we are truthful with ourselves, there are some things that are currently in our world that are not adding to our life, or at least not adding as much as they are taking away. So what helps us to hold a higher vision for ourselves is cutting the chaff out of our life and identifying these things that are like, okay, this isn't necessarily adding to my life. What is it doing here? And so if I'm surrounded by, if literally everything I can look at is adding to my life, then fantastic. It's going to be a lot easier for me to stay focused, achieve my purpose, and to be a, solid service.
I love that so much. Yes. Clutter, right? Does clutter serve us? Usually not. I think that environment really does impact. And I share this in my women's groups with the Power Affirmation. It's like, it's not just about mindsets, right? But like it is environment. If we're keeping things in our space that are dense or taking up a lot of space that are not serving, then it can be distractions. Same thing with thoughts, right? If we have the clutter of the mind, then it can take up a lot of space in our mind, and it's much more difficult to have those more clear thoughts. And so to kind of bring it into the conversation we're having, the topic around holding ourselves high, one of the things and practices that I really love is called a mind movie. And I think that this was Trevor Blake's concept. He calls it the mind movie. It's not a new concept, but he speaks about it really beautifully. And I think it's called 3 Simple Steps is the book. But the mind movie is that when we hold in our mind's eye a vision for who we are and who we're becoming at a very, very specific emotion, very specific moment on a timeline of where we're going, and we keep coming back to that mind movie, then we start to attract that into our lives. So I'm going to give an example. If you're working on moving to a new home and you know that where you're living is no longer in alignment, then practicing the meditation of seeing yourself in your bathtub, for example, in your new bathtub, and imagining with your fullest focus and attention and gratitude for what it feels like to enjoy that bathtub, to feel what it feels like to have the bubbles, and to feel what that warm water feels like, and the light coming in, and just imagining, right? And then allowing that to fuel much of your inspiration and gratitude. And then coming out of that meditation, then keep coming back to gratitude for what you have now, right? Letting it go and coming back to, so grateful for what I have right now. So grateful that I have this shower. Even though I don't have a bathtub right now, I'm grateful that I have the shower. And then come back to that meditation and holding that vision. I think I heard one time that, or a few times, I don't remember where, so pardon non being able to quote it, is that baseball players would do that in a locker room, and the team would come together and meditate on high-fiving each other at the end of the game and really focus their intention on what it feels like to have already won. We've already won, like, woo, celebrating, getting into that frequency of celebration, and then going and playing and like drawing that experience into us, right? It's like magnetizing, like the law of attraction.
It's like, that really beautiful place of being excited about some future thing, but unattached to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And another one I would love to share that's been really helpful for me, and I've shared this with a lot of my clients too, is if you have a hard conversation that you're going to be going into, whether it is like asking for a promotion or maybe going into a therapy session, whatever it might be, that this conversation might be challenging, then beforehand, imagining what it feels like when you're leaving that conversation, holding the vision of maybe hugging the person at the end. What does it feel like when you're already done with that conversation? What does it feel like to be driving away from that meeting? Like, how do you want to feel? How do you see yourself? How do you see yourself sitting in your car? What does the steering wheel feel like, when you're driving away and you're feeling the sense of joy and lightness and excitement and, positivity, future projecting, essentially.
I think that's great. And I sometimes struggle with a little bit of a negative worry, concern. I will or I think it's not realistic. Like the outcome that I really want, the chances, the odds are so just, it's not realistic. And I have to try to switch that to the opposite of like, is it possible? Like, is it possible that I will win this competition? It is. That's a possibility. So let's give that the energy. Let's make that be what I'm open to and what I'm believing, instead of there's a part, instead of like the part of your mind that's like, well, that's you're being unreasonable. So what? There's no penalty to having unreasonable beliefs and thoughts that are optimistic. We almost like we feel like, well, if we get to the end of our lives, there'll be like some judge being like, well, you were there's no penalty. You're allowed.
You were entirely unrealistic, young man.
Yeah.
To hell with you. Yeah. Yeah. There's, it reminds me of a movie scene where I personally believe like there's like nothing, like it's okay. There are certain things that are impossible. For me, like I'm never going to be able to set foot on the moon. Doesn't mean that nobody can do it. It means I can't do it. They won't let me into a rocket. I'm too old. I'm too tall. This, that, and the other thing. It's just not going to happen. But for the most part, anything I want to do on this planet, there is a way for me to do it. And sometimes, I'm reminded of the Marvel movie where like they had all these, only one outcome was going to allow them to win and save the universe. But all these things had to line up. But there was like one possibility in millions. And so they made it happen by doing that. And there is always a way, like there's a way for each one of us to become the CEO of a multi-million-dollar company. Do we want to, if that's what we want to do, there is a way to make that happen. How do we do that? And so having the belief that it's possible, for me personally, it's fairly, I've just seen so many crazy things in life that my idea of what's possible is pretty expansive. But yeah, so realizing like, okay, there is a way to do this thing that I'm wanting to do. How do I do it? I don't even necessarily always have to know how to do it. It's just that I know that this is what I want. And not be attached to that outcome of how that comes about, kind of takes the burden off, frankly. It's just like, okay, I know what I want. I will do and keep myself open to what needs to be done to make it happen, but I'm not going to like bang my head against the wall trying to come up with it. I will allow the universe to surprise me and to delight me with how this unfolds. And I'm certainly open to that. And the more I'm open to that, the more it tends to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. I think there's a cool shift in languaging from, oh, I could never do that, to what would it be like if I could do that? Oh, I would never be a millionaire. That just feels like, well, I would never, no way, duh, no, not me. I could never be a millionaire. But then what happens to our energy body, our state, when we start to go, gosh, what would it be like if I was a millionaire? Is that possible for me to be a millionaire? Is that even possible? It's like, wait a second. Anything is possible. Anything. And when we truly believe anything is possible, then that amplifies our opportunities. When we believe in ourselves, there's so much more energy that can really just well up in our willpower, our motivation, our strength, right? Conviction is really one of the most powerful things that can amplify our vision. If I put energy into that like deep knowing that this is possible, I'm going to do everything that I can, right? If I put conviction and I'm like, hey, I know that I am going to meet Oprah. That is like fully, deeply embedded in my cells. I am going to meet Oprah in this life, right? I know that is a truth. Then every day I'm going to be taking actions towards moving towards that, right? I'm going to start calling people. I'm going to start checking in with who do I know that knows people that knows Oprah. What am I going to do? It fuels the actions. I'm not just going to sit here and go, maybe one day I'll be Oprah and not do anything. But it's that conviction that fuels the action to start, bringing these things into our lives.
Yeah, I think it's for me important to remember that idea of believing it is possible, that things are possible, is it can be a huge challenge, and it's part of it is because of the way our brains work. That you fall into grooves of what your reality is, and so if you're struggling with thinking something is possible or struggling believing something, that's not an issue of facts. It's not an issue of possible or impossible. It's an issue of what your brain has established as reality and what is possible. And I think the whatever I'm speaking to myself, whenever you're stuck in these limitations, it's really good to remember how limiting our brains are. There's so much possibility in the brain, but once we get into grooves, we function within the way those grooves work. So if you start to think that's beyond my possibilities, or that greatness, is a little beyond what's realistic, you got to go according to what measuring stick, according to the grooves that I've worn into my head, but that is not the ultimate reality.
Yeah. I would something that just popped up for me. It's a feels a pretty powerful spark for me, is that there is the only failure in this world is a failure of imagination. There are for example, there's like a basketball player, a professional basketball player. He played almost 20 years. He never won a championship. He had a chance to a few times, but he failed at winning a championship because he unfortunately was playing at the same time that Michael Jordan was playing. And that makes him a member of a very large club who did not win a championship during that time. But over the course, so on one hand, like, well, yes, you failed to win a championship. But in the endeavoring and the trying to do this thing, he became the best version of himself. And he really went for it and really tried and gained admiration because he tried so hard. He was such a good player, and he left everything he had on the court every single night. And that elevated his, I guess, the way the world viewed him couldn't have been any higher than if he'd won a championship. And so therefore, like, he had this like awesome career after he retired. And people were like, he's known as, like, on the one hand, people were like, oh, well, he never won a championship. But he's so memorable because he tried it and played so hard and played so well that it's like his career was an absolute success. So it all depends on, if you're looking at the thing you failed to do, it's like you're not looking high enough. Like, raise your sights, raise your chin, and look at what all that you have accomplished in this world. And it's we've done a lot. Like, us three, and I think anybody listening, if you just like look around, it's like, actually, I've accomplished a lot. I've done a lot of solid things. I'm good enough. I'm smart enough. Gosh darn, people like me.
Yes, you're right.
This is great. So.
Thank you for that. I think that's a beautiful quote. Janus, you just always spit out the most amazing little bits of wisdom. I'm feeling a spark too, and perhaps this can be closing sparks. Great conversation. I'm sure we could keep going. I love getting to explore what comes through these conversations. But one thing that's really coming for me is I spoke with a woman a couple months ago who is this young Hispanic woman who opened a shop in Arizona, and she's a stand for the BIPOC community. And we had this amazing conversation around rising above limiting beliefs, and especially around privilege, because her parents' generation, they really imprinted in her that, well, because you're Hispanic, then you're not going to be able to do a lot of things. And she chose very clearly to choose a different belief. And she rose above that programming that her parents were putting into her. And she was so passionate, and she was like a stand for changing that minority programming and really believed in herself. And she opened this amazing boutique and is doing really well. And she was like 25, and so I think it's a really powerful time that we live in, where there is so much more opportunity for more people. And I think the programming, the belief systems that are in there are really a huge part of that. And having that conviction within ourselves to shift the programming, right? Because if we're told at a very young age that we can't do certain things, that we're not able to, or we're not going to be, able to be enough, then that can be in there deep grooves, like you were talking about, Halcyon. And so how do we take the reins of our thoughts and our beliefs and start to change the programming so that way we can rise up and to create the best life that we can? And I think it is, that is why I feel so passionate about the work that I'm getting to offer in the world with the Power Affirmation and choosing our thoughts more efficiently, more effectively, more regularly to be able to live my best life. So that's my closing spark for this conversation. Yeah.
Love it. My closing spark is a reminder that it's a combined practice of gratitude in the moment and a realigning to who you want to be, and also keeping a vision, keeping a North Star, a direction, a dream, and trying to have the courage to hold that dream, trying to keep maybe even confronting and seeking a level of I'm going to say nice seeking failure, but seeking something that's you're gonna miss it, but just trying to shoot for something bigger than you think you can do, and that there's no failure in failing when your imagination is grand, as Janus was saying. The failure is only in not having enough imagination. So I'm gonna try to keep that daily practice, the daily one step forward towards service, and also keeping an eye on a shiny star to go for as well.
There you go. Yeah, reach for the stars. You might make it to the moon. So, as they say. So yeah, and it's kind of goes back to what we mentioned before. It's the once again, the only failure is the failure of imagination, but also I think the not trying also can kind of feel like it's like I didn't do enough, or I'm not doing enough, and we always feel there's a sense of satisfaction that I feel a lot of us feel when we know that we gave it a solid try. We know that we gave it an effort, and even holding this highest vision for ourselves. I can live with that not happening, but what would cause regret for me is knowing that I didn't give it an honest try, that I didn't really make the effort for that. I would love to have had my own business, but it didn't happen. And it's like, if I wanted to open a restaurant, and even if you open it and it fails in 3 years, but you did it, you made an effort, and that certainly is going to feel better than having never made the effort at all. So whatever gets us to take those steps and hold that vision and then move towards that. It doesn't have to happen all at once, baby steps, but as long as I feel like I've taken these steps, gave it an honest try when I had the opportunity, I'm going to be able to live with that.
Absolutely. And I'd love to add on to that as well. There's certain dreams that we have to let go of, and certain stages of life where it's like, I wish I would have done that. There can be a lot of regret towards the end of life of going like, oh, I would have loved to open that restaurant, but obviously I can't because I'm 80 years old now. But how can we be kind and loving to ourselves when we don't fulfill a dream, or we try to do something, or we don't try to do something, and then still be able to come back to gratitude and not get swept up in the like, oh man, I should have done this or that with my life and I just didn't. And then being bummed about it for the rest of our lives. So looking at, well, actually, you know what? I had a really amazing, thriving garden because I didn't open that restaurant, for example, right? I had really healthy house plants because I really tended to my home environment, and I didn't, become the movie star that I thought about becoming. And that's okay. That's enough.
Oh my gosh. I just want to hit that again really hard, because I think that these visual of us, in an old folks home on our rocking chairs, sharing our achievements of our life. And if your story is, I tried a business for 3 years and it didn't work, that's every bit as interesting as I had an empire that made billions. Like, those are both super interesting stories about things we tried. Awesome. And the to go back to the success or the achievement or the grandiosity of the mundane, that if with a gratitude practice, if we can go, you know what, I tended my garden, I was there for my family. Like last night, I spent like 2.5 hours working on a video birthday card for my partner's nephew. Now, is that going to go on my Wikipedia page as a grand accomplishment? Probably not. But it felt like that it's part of tending the garden of my life, and I feel good about that. That is part of my highest, to just keep being those little things. And I think a gratitude practice is what keeps reminding you that you're doing a lot more than you think. There's a lot that you're doing every day that is part of that highest version of yourself. Okay, that's my final spot.
I love it. Oh, I'm so grateful.
What we do in life will be forgotten. How we made people feel during our life will never be forgotten. So
yeah,
that helps me. So thank you everyone for joining us today. Betsy, where can we find you out in the world, should we choose to want to?
I am so passionate about this conversation that we're in, and I have made my life's work to support people in this style of believing in ourselves. So poweraffirmation.com is where you can find my offerings, my current offerings that are always evolving. There is an affirmation journal in there that helps you get in touch with your belief systems, the negative ones that you want to change, and then really infuse your mindset with affirmations to support your most positive thinking. There is an amazing deck of cards coming that I'm so excited about. I do one-on-one coaching as well with mindset and embodiment practices to help you live your best life. And I also work with people in person doing body work that is very multi-dimensional and supportive to mind, body, spirit transformation. So you can find me online, and feel free to reach out with any questions or just to say hi.
So good.
And that's at finklehoo.com.
Yep. You can also find it if you go on poweraffirmation.com. It goes to the same place. There's a, yeah.
Such a treat to have your perspective in this conversation, Betsy.
Thank you.
You can find me at lifestudent.com, and through that, join me for these daily practices every morning at 9 a.m. Pacific, sharing gratitude and intentions for the day, and also in Zoom every day at noon Pacific for a little gratitude circle. And it is a practice not of pretending everything is great, but of taking stock in life and creating that inventory of what is alive for me that makes me feel like I'm on track. And it also, as Betsy pointed out, it can give you fuel when you need to make changes. When you start taking inventory, you're like, okay, I can tell what feels good in this moment, and I can tell what would feel better as I'm doing this daily practice of inventory. So join me and for those public free things. And if you'd like some one-on-one help in your gratitude practice, you can also reach out to me for that as well.
Fantastic. Thank you, Allison. So yeah, sometimes in order to make these changes, you have to actually change your brain. And sometimes we need to physically rewire our brains in order to empower us to hold these highest visions for ourselves. That's where my business comes in. I have a company called NuWorld Nutritionals, spelled NuWorld Nutritionals, and we make nutritional supplements designed to elevate and improve your state of mind. You want to get some more positive thinking? Check out our premier product is My Chromosome Plus. It's got a stack of good nutrients in there that is designed to wire your brain for so that you're going to be able to get in life what you are looking for. So it's a good support system for all that. You can find us on nuworldnutritionals.com. You can use the code SPARKED for 10% off of all of our products. So thanks again for joining us. And Betsy, we like to, if you could send us off with a relevant affirmation so that we can get our days going to a fantastic start.
An upward spiral.
An upward
spiral. The upward spiral of life. Yes, I would be honored to. Here's an affirmation that just came through as relevant to what we're talking about. I hold a vision of goodness in the world and in my life. I'm going to add on to that, actually. I easily hold a high vision of goodness in the world and in my life. I easily hold a high vision of goodness in the world and in my life. I am willing to dream big. I am willing to dream big. I am willing to dream even bigger. I am willing to dream big for myself and for the world. I am willing to dream big for myself and for the world. I believe anything is possible. I believe anything is possible. I believe anything is possible. And then lastly, I live with an infinite mindset. This one's my favorite. I live with an infinite mindset. I live with an infinite mindset. An infinite mindset. Infinite mindset. Infinite mindset. May these affirmations continue to linger in your consciousness and support you in creating your best life. Thank you, guys. I'm feeling so sparked, so grateful, and thank you all for listening.
Stay sparked, people.
Find us on Instagram at Stay Sparked and leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts.
Thanks so much for helping us spread these sparks.